This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, what to do if you're a young person with a strong back and a strong mind. And how does the proposed ARC program fit into your plans? And mini horses to the rescue? All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. It's been a good week for us. Cooler temperatures, and technically we did get some rain. Let's hope this weekend we get some more. According to the highly precise and technical Me Behind the Wheel survey and our friends with the Four Rivers Crop Survey group, most of you are done with the planting. Maybe some ditch work, maybe some side dressing of nitrogen, but now it's a bit of watching and waiting. They do report that 88% of the corn has emerged, again, way ahead of last year, and on par with 2007 and 2004. So they turn their attention to soybeans, to which many farmers in the states have also been paying their attention to. 80% of the state's soybeans have been planted, about twice as much as this time last year in the 5-year average. And we're seeing about 40% of the crop having emerged. In the East-Southeast district, we are corn 99% planted and 97% emerged, soybeans 82% planted and 45% emerged. Moisture-wise, we're at 2% very short, 34% short, and 64% adequate. We'll see what we can get Cameron to do for us. So the crops are in, and the most important thing you have to do is to sit around and worry about the 1,001 things you can worry about. Well, what about pending legislation? The proposed farm bill is causing a bunch of conversation around here about the ARC program. Todd Gleason reports on how ARC may play out on a grain farm.
The Illinois Ag Econ team used average cash prices of $4.50. That's what some suggest is the new midpoint for corn. A $4 price, $3.75, which is a mid-1990s equivalent, and a low ball of $3.55 a bushel for corn to see how the Farm Bill's new ARC, or Agricultural Risk Coverage Program, would do as a grain farm safety net.
And we looked at yields close to average, so average yields. 450 price wouldn't generate payments, and we begin to generate payments in our example around $4.11 per bushel. A $4 price over several years would generate minimal payments of $18 in the first year, $14 in the second year, $8 in the third year, and nothing after that. So that would be what a $4 price would do. A $3.75 price would generate a payment of $54 in the first year, and then it would decline to $41 and $35. And again, that's saying that the $3.75 price would last several years in a row.
The Agricultural Risk Coverage Program is specifically designed to pay out less over time when an extended period of low prices occurs. It is also expected to be used as a complementary program to crop insurance. ARC pays out when revenue dips below 89%, but maxes out once revenues drop below 79%.
The thought is that if you go down further than that, crop insurance will begin to make payments. So those percentages, 89 and 79, were selected to sort of provide protection against multi-year price or yield or revenue declines and not overlap too much with crop insurance.
If ARC were to be enacted, farmers then would be expected to use crop insurance to protect against losses in the current year and make a decision to or not to sign up for ARC to protect against multi-year losses. ARC is a duration of the Farm Bill program, so sign-up happens just once. It's kind of like ACRE, the pilot program, which will end with the current crop year, but rather than a statewide trigger, it has triggers based on either county yields or farm-level yields. For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.
What do you want to be when you grow up? What do I want to be? I don't know yet. I'll let you guys know when I figure it out. But it's particularly hard if you're a young person and you're thinking about a career in agriculture because there's so many different options. Well, to help me figure this out, or help you figure this out, is Dyke Barkley. He's a horticulturist instructor and an ag instructor at Lakeland College. Yeah. And Dyke, for young people why should they even consider a career in agriculture?
I honestly, one of the things I think is most important is, do you enjoy your job? Is it
Yep.
something, have you grown up messing around on the farm or been related or even maybe took some classes in high school? I think the most important thing to me is you enjoy your job. If you keep using the word job,
Yep.
then we need to be looking at something different.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's so much involved in agriculture.
It is.
You got a little bit of chemistry, you got botany, you got
a lot of different areas you could go in. You can have an interest in one area and go, even in my field of horticulture, you can be a grower and concentrate on the plants, or you could be a people person that loves to talk and go into sales or repair or something like that. So a lot of different areas you could go into.
And because there are a lot of different areas to go into, Lakeland has a lot of different areas you guys work with.
Right. Our agriculture department is quite diverse. We've got a couple of guys that are good at livestock and livestock judging. Maria's good in the ag business. I do the horticulture and some of the alternative ag. We've got Mark's the agronomist. So we cover a lot of different areas, and we have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas.
So why don't you talk about some of those specialties? There's one that's probably pretty tough to get into right now. That is the mechanics program.
Specifically the John Deere, that's through the John Deere company. But that one you're hosted by an actual John Deere dealership. But also in addition, we have Ag Power, which is basically kind of call it the all colors. And I know that one's you can get into, but you can get into ag business, you can get into ag production.
Now, in doing this program, I'm learning more and more and more about the business aspect of farming. That's very complicated. A student who doesn't know what they want to do yet, those classes would be valuable also, wouldn't they?
They'd be very valuable class. Just simple record keeping is becoming important in the technology, and we get lots of data coming in from even a combine today. What do you do with that information, or how do you make a available of it? And I think you get some classes. In addition to that, our program's got internships, or SOE, but I would call it an internship. And you can actually go out and get a job or get some experience in the area that you have an interest in, and go out and work for somebody that does that area that you have some curiosity about.
Okay, so I'm a young person and I don't know what I want to do or where I want to go. I have this vague feeling that maybe something agriculturally related. Where do I start? How do you proceed?
Well, definitely, if you can, applying to Lakeland's easy. You do it all online. The application's on there. But the other thing I would advise is get a hold of one of us instructors at the college, and we can sit down and kind of guide you through that way. A lot of the information is there on what courses are available. And I think any of the ag programs, you take a little bit of courses in a lot of things. You'll have some animal science. You'll have some agronomy. You'll have some soils. You'll take a class in all that. And you may be even somebody like me who started in one area, and as soon as I took some classes, I kind of made a shift. I started out my college career in animal science.
Okay.
And took a horticulture class as an elective and ended up with a horticulture degree 4 years later.
So you fell in love with plants and
gave
up animals.
Gave up animals, but and ultimately for me, on a personal level, I was able to go back to the family farm and set up my own garden center there. So we kind of converted the family farm from livestock, completely out of the livestock industry at my place, and now we're in the garden center.
So now you can actually take a vacation.
Well, I don't know if I get to do that very often. But take a vacation and go look at plants.
Oh, okay.
Kind of related to what I do. But.
So what are the options of students who go through the Lakeland Ag program?
The different programs? You get like the ag business, the ag.
What are the options? I mean, you go through the program and you have 2 great years at Lakeland. What happens after that?
A lot of students can either go directly into the field. A lot of them would take their internships and use it as an open door, and to get in with different companies, from ag sales to ag chemical companies to actual farming operations. Several students will also then decide maybe to go on and get a 4-year degree. Most of our tech programs will go ahead and transfer to either Southern in Carbondale, Western, or Illinois State up in Bloomington, and go and get their 4-year degree, which may sound like a long way off and not interesting, but it's interesting to see the students that maybe change their mind after they get in and get started.
So what if you weren't the best student in high school?
Yeah, I usually talk about a student that I have that's just finishing up his career. I would call him a BC student in high school. I'm not saying he was a bad student, but he wasn't the straight honor roll every year. And the interesting thing, you got over at Lakeland College, and you're taking classes specifically in what you have an interest in. He's getting straight A's, and his parents are wondering who he is. But one of the things that's interesting, he never even dreamed about going on, and now he's getting his 4-year degree. And he's even actually going into areas that he never even thought he would be as far as a career area.
Wow.
So I think that's because you're taking classes specifically in what you have an interest in, and you're with a bunch of students that also have similar interests, it's a lot different than maybe traditional high school. And one of the things I think we talked about earlier was if you decide to go on to a 4-year school, it's pretty much based on what you do grade-wise while you're at Lakeland. It can kind of erase some of the maybe bumps on the road you had in high school if you had that.
Yeah, so your transcript has a short memory.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's based on if you can get good grades at Lakeland, they'll look at that and you know, maybe you weren't the greatest at taking the ACT. You know, it'll kind of you can get around some of that.
Okay, so say you already have the family farm. And you think you want to eventually take over or at least help out with the family farm. What sort of path would you recommend? Just an associate's degree, or would you say, you know, a 4-year degree at a good ag school? What sort of classes might you want to consider taking?
I think there's different angles you could go, but I think a real good one would be probably that ag business or ag production degree, the 2-year degree, and then make a decision after you get there if you wanted to go on and get the 4, so that at the end of 2 you would have something to pull your hands on. I think even in that case you can really get some benefit because you can take some of the questions you have at your family place and you know, real world, not just learning things in class,
not
but
just theory.
Applying it. Yeah,
right.
Hey, well, how could we adjust that at the home level? How could we redo this?
So agriculture is a constantly changing business. I mean, Maria talked to me about the ag bill, and my head is still spinning. But you know, do you have people who have been farming, who've been in ag careers, who come back to pick up new information and go on?
Not so much. We do have some of that. We do have a few people that come back and pick up, and mostly it's a little bit of a difference. That would be more of a 1-night or a 2-night than a full semester class. So we do have a few adults coming back changing careers in that, but mostly it's people wanting to get the degree and get
moving,
get going that way. Yeah.
Okay, so if you have any advice for a young person who's even thinking about it, what would you tell that person about a career in agriculture? And with career in agriculture, it could be, you know,
I think
anything.
it's bigger out there than you may realize. It's not all per se going back to the family farm. There are options out there if you don't have that family farm. And I think one of the things that's a benefit that we can say is agriculture is still the largest employer in the state of Illinois, and it's doing well right now. It's not in a slump like everything else.
Right.
So I think there's jobs out there.
Right.
I think they're available.
Well,
that's the important thing.
That, you know, and I would like to see the young people stay around. It keeps the area vibrant and vital. And Dyke, thank you very much for coming. We're going to get you back a little bit later on, because once you do a good job here, you're mine forever. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. It's been a quiet week in agricultural news, but there have been some things that caught our attention. At last, we can color the mad cow disease scare in California gone. The USDA has lifted the quarantine placed on 2 farms due to a mad cow disease investigation. The first farm was quarantined when a dairy cow tested positive for the disease. The second farm was somehow linked to the sick cow. The agency first thought that it might be an animal feed issue, but that was quickly dispelled. It's now thought the animal in question was genetically susceptible to developing the disease. Let's hope that ends that for a while. And we may be a bit drier than we wanted to be, but in the Russian corn belt, there are major concerns for the corn's grain production due to a very hot and very dry period in southern Russia. Some parts of the Ukraine growing region have not seen any rain for over a month, and farm experts have dropped the estimate on the area's wheat production from 14 million metric tons to 10 million. And that would be less than half of last year's harvest. Well, halfway across the world, the drought that tortured Texas last year has lightened up. Less than 14% of the state is rated as being in drought, according to the U.S. Drought Monitoring Service. And while this is good news for the farmers, and the farmers will gladly take it, the effect of the drought will take 2 or 3 years of average or above average rainfall to overcome it. So this will go down as one of the worst droughts in Texas history. Much closer to home, do you know a great farmer? If so, are they Farmer of the Year material? Nominations for the Coles County Farmer of the Year are now being accepted by the Charleston Area Chamber of Commerce. The winner will be announced Tuesday, July 3rd, as part of the Red, White, and Blue Day celebration. The candidates will be judged on their contributions to Coles County's agriculture, the use of innovating farming techniques, a willingness to help other farmers in farming and civic organizations, participation in community activities, and the individual should exemplify the farming profession and serve as a role model to younger farmers. So I guess I'm not eligible? So if you know someone else who is a great farmer, a great citizen, and a great person, consider nominating them. Applications are available at the Chamber's office, the Farm Bureau, or online, and are due Friday, June 8th. By now, most of us have seen someone using an assistance animal, usually a dog. But a seeing eye horse? Tanisha Baseman has more.
What the heck's a horse doing in here, you know?
Imagine one of these walking in your home or playing with your family dog. Or what about hearing this? In the next aisle over at the grocery store, the state of Illinois is considering allowing trained mini horses to work as service animals. They'd be used to help those with disabilities, including autism, vision impairment, and hearing disabilities. Allison Stepp from Stepp and High Farm in Paris trains miniature horses and says they would be the perfect helper.
Yeah, they are a little easier to train for me.
You got to work with them quite a bit. Plus, you got to make them mind you. It takes a long time.
Bo Stepp has 14 miniature horses and has spent years working with the animals. Though he agrees they have a good temperament, he says they'd be harder to train in comparison to dogs.
They can see very good because they can see behind them as good as they can in front of them. And their hearing's very good too. But as far as leading, traffic signals and stuff, I don't know about that.
I would prefer a horse because I've been around horses a lot, so I just think they're fun.
The state Senate has approved the measure. It now moves to the House. In Paris, I'm Tynesha Bateman.
When we think of the good old days of farming, what comes to mind? Farming, it seems, has a lot of old days to consider. Cameron Craig looks back, way back, to a time when farming was a brand new concept in under the Four Rivers sky.
The development of agriculture did not happen overnight. In fact, it took several thousands of years for humans to shift from hunting and gathering food to establishing farmland to plant crops. In the hunter and gathering tradition, which was about 18,000 to 10,000 years ago, the population was simply limited because each day a person had to forage food from the forest.
We have evidence today from 13,500 years back in Syria. What is Syria today? There were civilizations which were hunter-gatherers, and then they were the first agricultural society, so to speak, because they had an abundance of oaks and pistachios and such, and they had a good population base that was supported by what was available.
As the climate began to shift from a moist environment to a dry environment in the northern hemisphere, societies began to find it difficult to gather pistachios and acorns to support their small populations. Drier environments led to the shift of forests requiring a great deal of precipitation to grasslands which did not require significant precipitation. As these nomadic societies began to find it difficult to migrate to where the food was, the grasslands began to support these populations on a small scale.
When things turned into a grassland, now they had to sustain themselves by eating seeds of these grasses. And that was the primitive beginning of what we call agriculture. We can say that. And 13,000 years back, we find evidence that they started eating these grasses.
Over time, the domestication of grass as a crop, such as wheat, began to appear across the landscape. These hunter and gatherer societies began to see the benefits of physically planting grasses for food rather than searching for food in a dwindling forest. As these societies began to modify the landscape for planting, population began to grow with the amount of food that was available. Essentially, humans could have larger families because they were able to plant food to support the larger population.
In those times when smaller hunter-gatherer societies were sustained by what they got, they were better off. However, the agriculturalists who figured that now we can maximize the seeds that are grown by these grasses and cultivate them, what they found was by the sheer amount that they could grow, it was becoming more efficient for them to feed more people. And they didn't have to live in smaller communities. They could support larger communities because this food was available right there. Because the initial amount of work that you put in to agriculture is a lot. However, once established, you don't have to put in as much.
In regards to leisure, which was better? Was it the hunter-gatherer tradition, or was it the development of agriculture that allowed humans to enjoy leisure time?
Human beings became smarter. There are different hypotheses saying why did we change to agriculture? Because if you look at it, hunter-gatherer societies are actually better off than agricultural societies. Because hunter-gatherer societies are sometimes called the true leisure societies, where they had plenty of time. They probably spent 6 hours a day collecting food maybe and hunting. And the rest of the time they had to themselves, and they were doing whatever they did.
And finally this week, last Sunday was the 150th anniversary of the Homestead Act. What is the Homestead Act? Well, in 1862, Abraham Lincoln signed a bill into law that allowed individuals to lay claim to federal land, usually west of the Mississippi. They had to apply in 3 stages: file an application, have never taken arms against the United States, and lived on and improved the land for at least 5 years. An estimated 1.6 million homesteads were created, and over 270 million acres of federal land was privatized and became working farmland. The act is often cited for expanding the number of Americans who became farmers, and many of us can directly link our farm heritage to this act. So, thanks, Abe. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report. You know, on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we're always looking for news that is of interest to the agricultural and the rural communities. Every week we scour the local papers, the state and national websites. We talk to lots and lots of people every day looking for information that will help and or entertain you. There is one more way that we can find out the latest news, topics, trends, and events that are part of your life. you can tell us. We'd love to hear from you about what's going on in your town, on your farm, or even on your neighbor's farm. If you got a topic you'd like us to talk about, let us know. I probably won't know the answer, but I probably know people who do. Please let us know what is happening. You can call us at 217-581-7245. You can email us at weiu@weiu.net. We're on Facebook at WEIU TV, Public Broadcast Station. And if you tweet, we're on Twitter at WEIU1. So now that you got our number, don't be a stranger.